It's been called the triathlon of the art world. Kinetic sculpture racing, a spectacle of a race where elaborate people-powered machines navigate roads, mud, and water. Local enthusiast Michael Roundy was determined to bring that fun to Lowell, teaming up with Bianca Morrow to promote the race.
I thought that it was just something that was absolutely fantastic, and I always wanted to try to bring that back to New England.
As word gets out, Nick and Carl decide they're up for the challenge, figuring out the details and pitfalls of creating their own all-terrain vehicle.
We call the machine the think tank at this point, because if we think long enough and hard enough, it'll become a tank. The inspiration was the mud obstacle and the sand obstacle. We thought those were going to be difficult from a traction perspective, so we scavenged a couple of tracks off a snowmobile and started going to town with gears off bikes and all sorts of things. We took off the track and the suspension, and then we built a quick frame around that and found that the snowmobile suspension had too much friction. So we got rid of the snowmobile suspension and built our own custom suspension. There's no springs or anything, so it's a rough ride now, unfortunately, but it's a lot less friction, so we can actually go down the road okay. We kept this part, this chain case, it gives us a reduction ratio and also gives us a disc brake, which we haven't rigged up yet. And then from there, that's the end of the snowmobile, and then we strapped on a bike, basically, inverted bicycle here, with chain and just welded on a sprocket. And then from here back, all the seat is custom made. There was a nice document online that told us how to make a really nice seat out of conduit, and it works great. It's designed for a recumbent bike, and that's pretty much the seating position. So we've been really happy with the seats. We're probably going to do something nicer to cover them. Right now we just got some ratchet straps on there, but it does the job for testing.
A few days ago, we rode it a mile to the donut shop down the street and back. Got some donuts to refuel halfway and turned around and came back. It's slow going, but the only thing that went wrong was about a quarter of the way there, the weld under my seat snapped and I fell off the back. But fortunately the seats are made of ratchet straps, so we just took one of those off and strapped the seat back on and kept going. We've calculated, based on the gear ratio between the pedals and the chain here and the gear reduction for the track and the size of the track, that theoretical top speed is like 2 miles an hour. Not really top speed, but at a reasonable cycling pace. Oh, my seat's slipping.
Uh-oh. Hey, mine hasn't, though.
It is a race, I would say, in that there are prizes based on time, but there are also prizes based on engineering and art. So it is very much a sort of come have fun, not a you must be super competitive. There are prizes for time. One is the person who finishes first. One is also the person who finishes exactly in the middle. And then there's another one for the person who finishes second to last. So we might be gunning for that one.
Local artist Jay Hungate is so inspired, he went to California to get some experience with kinetic sculpture racing.
I heard through the grapevine that there was going to be a arts festival downtown Lowell and that there was going to be a kinetic sculpture race as part of it. So I flew out to Sacramento and went down to Arcata and was on the pit crew for a team called Ketchup, which was a three-wheeled machine. It had one wheel in the front and two in the back. And I spent a lot of time just studying other people's machines, looking to see what worked. During the 3-day race, a lot of machines, broke down, others didn't. These wheels came from a fat tire bike at Target that I'd been eyeing for months, thinking that it was going to be a perfect basis for building my machine on. So I've used the front wheels, or the front and back wheel from the bike, as well as the brakes from the bike. I've made some modification for the hubs so that they'll sit on the 5/8" axle. The frame for the bike in the back, as well as the forks. This is a wheelbarrow wheel, and I'll be using the wheelbarrow body for the front of the bow of the ship. So this is actually going to be mounted underneath these. I'm going to use a lot of flotation like these, various things. in various spots. This will be sealed. Then this area is going to have the fins, the kind of shark fins. And the bottom is almost going to look like a war machine, where these are going to probably be kind of like jet engines, like a fighter jet. But they're also going to provide buoyancy and kind of an outrigger so I don't tip over in the water. Last night it got a lot of riding downtown Lowell, and it seems like the gearing has some little kink to it that I'll have to work on today to figure out what's going on.
After months of preparation, it's finally race day. Are they ready? Michael Roundy describes what these mobile art projects will need to do.
It's going to be around 5 miles, and they're going to be going through a cobblestone street, which we're calling Bone Shaker Alley. And then from there, they'll be heading over to the Sangha Center, where there'll be a 50-foot long, 15-foot wide, 6-inch deep mud pit, of which they're going to have to travel through. They will also, once they make their way through that, if they make their way through that, they'll be coming back around here to the beach and going down the boat ramp and then navigating across the water and up the sand.
Not everyone has had months of planning, however. Some are game to participate despite minimal preparation.
I got here at midnight last night from Pennsylvania, so we rode it from where it was stored to here, and that's it. The Kraken Upcycle was built in 2015 for the Baltimore Kinetic Sculpture Race. It was built by the University of Baltimore, Maryland County, or University of Maryland, Baltimore County, sorry. It's a Kraken-themed car that's all made out of recycled materials, so the Kraken is all made from cut-up water bottles and soda bottles, and the pontoons are old plastic barrels that have been lashed together to give us buoyancy.
So this is called the Midnight Machine. We got a call basically that the machine we were supposed to be piloting didn't make it up from Delaware, and so we talked to Bianca a little bit, and I said, is there anything that we can do? And she said, well, unless you can figure out a way to strap a couple of bikes and kayaks together, then I said, I can do that, actually. So we pulled Rick together, we pulled Amanda and a couple of these guys together, and got the kayaks, got the bikes, and we worked until about 2 o'clock in the morning, tested the chassis, and we'll see how the rest of it goes.
It's called Mousetrap. We didn't actually build it. Someone in California did, and they shipped it up here out of the kindness of their heart, and we found out about it like a week ago that we were going to be in this race.
It is the Kinetic Duck. I am definitely a biker, so I wanted to get my bike involved in this, and the only way I could really think of getting it to float was to cut a hole in my raft here and make it work like that. So the wheels started cranking, and then next thing you know, this came out.
We checked in with Carl and Nick. They've made some changes to their think tank. It now looks more like a tank.
We've added on the tank bodywork and the turret, obviously, and a horn. We've added levers to engage and disengage wheels, so we can even go downhill now without pedaling. Before we go into the water, we're going to add some outriggers and inflatable pontoons, and those work. They've been tested. They don't work really well, so eventually we'll sink, but hopefully we'll make it to the beach.
We check in with Jay. His iconic flying fish has taken shape. But as he tried it on the mud, how about the water?
It's been in the garage, it's gone down the street, and that's it. No water test, nothing. Prayers appreciated.
Then they were off.
1, 2, 3, go!
Nick showing off with a flip on the way to the think tank.
We knew it was going to be the Le Mans start where we have to run across the street, and it was like, well, it's a race, but we're already really slow, so we might as well put on a good show. Yeah, and then we were off to the races, and got to turn on the bubble machine. Very important.
We had forgotten to fill with bubble mix, so it gives us like a few bubbles right out at the beginning, and then we didn't have it filled up until we made it around the block.
Yeah. Race starts, we're taking off, and everyone's way faster than us, as we expected. Like, we knew we were going to go 2 miles an hour. And so we had all of our friends who ride crazy bikes had actually ridden up from Somerville the night before. They left Somerville at like 9 o'clock at night and got up here at like 3 a.m. and camped in Carl's backyard. It had rained that night. Like, they were soaking wet, super tired.
They spent an hour just standing under a bridge and just waiting for the rain to calm down, like on their way up from Somerville to Lowell.
But so they got here in the middle of the night, like camped, didn't sleep very much, woke up in the morning, came out to support us and loved it, and like they had a grand old time. I think by this point everyone had already passed us. We were sitting right in the back of the pack where we expected to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you can see, our tank is even too slow for all our friends on crazy bikes. They're just making loops.
The iconic flying fish, a huge crowd favorite, even though it lacked some of the finishing touches that Jay wanted to make.
Not all the little special gimmicks and stuff that I had planned ended up being finished. You know, I had a core group of people that were going to be on my team, and that was the other great thing, that I knew friends were going to be coming, but they actually wanted to be part of the team, ride along.
And those friends would prove to be very important after things got down and dirty in the mud pit. It didn't look as if it would be tough to master the mud pit, and indeed some of the machines made it through without much difficulty. It soon became apparent, however, that this was definitely a trouble spot.
So we underestimated the soupiness of mud. The mud was so soft. Thought we were just going to float right over the top of it and it would feel pretty much the same as the road because we were so few PSI. But because the mud was so deep and soft and mounted, and what we foolishly did is we added wheels to the back to make it so we could go faster on the road, and we didn't remove them for the stage. You can see we took off the front wheels for the mud stage, but we left the back wheels on. We thought they were going to kind of come up off the ground as the front of the tank tilted forward in the mud. But what we realized, because we'd never been in mud until the race, what we realized at the race was these frames were too low, because if you sink in even just a couple inches, which we didn't think we were going to do, but if you do, then the mud hits the frame, and once the mud hits your frame, you're stuck.
Then you're basically made a plow.
Yeah.
And a plow and a pile of mud is not the right vehicle. Fortunately, everybody runs in to help, and I had to be like, whoa. Don't push on the artwork, because the tank structure bodywork is very non-structural.
And how did Jay, with his iconic flying fish, do?
I hit the mud and got stuck. I realized, oh, silly me, I forgot to put the two-wheel drive. Struggling. Now I had expected a mud pit. This was really more of a mud mountain. So then I backed it up and didn't really have the keys lined up, so it took a lot of fussing to get the axles lined up. Got it locked. At that point, I was too close to the mud to get any sort of momentum to climb. So I just started cranking, and that's when my hub just basically turned into a noodle. And you can see how much torque is being put on it. I'm just pumping that crankset. So at that point, the crank had exerted so much torque on my hub that it twisted into a noodle. And so I called in everyone to help. Not how I planned on conquering the mountain.
It's time to head to the water obstacle. Spectators head to the park and wait for the machines to roll in. The mousetrap has had some issues.
The sides keeps deflating, but luckily we have a compressor we refilled it before the mud pit and after the mud pit, and we'll probably find some power and refill it again here. But it's going really well. It's a lot of work.
It didn't take long to start wondering, where was Jay and his flying fish? Where was the think tank? Apparently, they're somewhere on the road demonstrating the power of friendship.
Jay, wrecked his drivetrain in the mud. When we caught up with him broken, we pulled over and stopped to help. So he had his whole crew of people on bikes as well, and they had one guy on a tricycle, and we actually gave them a tow strap so they could hook up the tricycle to the flying fish so they could tow it up the hill. But I thought it was great that we've been joking back and forth for months that all right, we'll bring a tow strap for you and we'll tow you out of the water or whatever you need. And we ended up stopping and he was broken and we handed him a tow strap and away he went.
Way faster than us. His sculpture being towed by a tricycle is way faster than the think tank.
Yeah.
Team Think Tank now has yet another issue to deal with.
Got 2/3 or 3/4 of the way to the water, from the mud to the water. And then all the state troopers and road workers that were behind us said hey, we've got to open this lane back up because the cars are just building up. We're not really supposed to have it closed this long. So we're going to take you off the course and clean up these cones. And the guys that were collecting the cones with the pickup truck, they said, hey, once we've collected the cones, we'll come back and we'll get you and we'll put your tank on the back of our pickup truck. So they did this. It took a long time. Once they got to us, we had the 6 people around us help us pick the sculpture up. 6 people can lift it, just barely, onto the back of the pickup truck. And then we strapped it down with our ratchet straps. And pay attention to these ratchet straps and tow straps because they're going to come in later.
At the water feature, other teams are ready to go. Finally, here comes Jay and his iconic flying fish, ready to find out if all that planning and work will conquer the Merrimack.
I hadn't water tested it, so the Merrimack River was a big question mark as to how well the machine would float. I was pretty sure it would float. I was joking with a lot of people that, oh, stay tuned, there's going to be dive teams ready just in case. But I overbuilt it as far as the flotation, so I was pretty confident that it would. So I didn't have my drivetrain working there. Fortunately, it turns out that I could reach the wheels and kick those along. Paddle wheels still worked. And then I discovered, hey, what if I flap the tail? And it turns out that actually worked pretty good for propulsion as well. It had just been for steering, but it turns out it was pretty good for its own propulsion. So I caught up pretty quickly to Kraken. Here, Cheetah is working along.
Or taking me. Like that. They're not going backwards. They're not going backwards. Oh, look at that. The iconic flying fish. His legs must be tired. He's using his arms now. Give it up for Cheetah. They're making it look easy. The iconic flying fish. All right, here we go.
So So here I finally got a bite on the sand, trying to climb up out of the water. Of course, if I had had the drivetrain at this point, it would have been a lot easier. And it was so much fun to hear people just cheering and having a blast, rooting me on, rooting all the teams on. Finally getting some bite here, slowly crawling out. And this is, you know, I had to conquer this. I had to, in the spirit of the race, you know, I knew we could do it. So much fun to have people there cheering it on.
And the think tank? Where are they?
The pickup truck brings us to the water stage, drops us off right at the top of the boat ramp, and then we send someone off to see if we can do the water stage. Meanwhile, we're optimistically putting all our outriggers on and converting over to water mode, taking off those wheels. Did we take the wheels off?
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah,
because that gives us more friction in the sand to exit the water. So we started converting everything over. We realized we had lost one of our ratchet straps, which is important for holding the pontoons on.
Well, we didn't think so at the time.
We didn't think it was that important.
So the pickup truck driver was apparently the organizer's ride back to the start-finish line. And by the time we got to the water, everyone else had gone through the water and was out and was leaving. So we got dropped off as all the other sculptures were on their way back to the finish line. And the pickup truck driver was like, I can drop you off, but I need to go immediately because I need to give someone a ride somewhere else. So we got the sculpture off and he had to book it somewhere. And we didn't notice in the kerfuffle that one of our straps was still in the back of the truck.
Plus, we'd given our extra ratchet strap to Jay.
Right.
So we were down a ratchet strap, and this turned out to be very important. Well, we didn't know it at the time, but when we were in the water, one of the pontoons starts coming up. And we're like, well, is it escaping? Because it's
I knew it. You didn't know it.
It's
on my side.
You thought I got swamped at one point because a boat came by.
Yeah.
And a wake came by from this boat, and it was just traveling down the river. And all of a sudden, the sculpture started going a lot farther into the water on his side. I'm sitting there pretty much high and dry, and he's almost waist high in the water. And but I had noticed because I was cranking the propeller around. It's my hand just kept going deeper and deeper in the water, and then so eventually Nick, since he was on the low side, he called it off. He's like, all right, I think we're sinking, so we better get that safety boat to pull us out.
But we also, with the water, we knew the water worked because we did it ourselves the day before.
We did the entire stage perfectly fine.
We took the tank to Heritage State Park, went down the boat ramp, and then we're like, well, I don't have a safety boat or anyone to help out, so we actually had a little inflatable rubber raft that we had bought as backup flotation. That we're well, we might use this inflatable raft or these other things. But yeah, so we finally got towed out of the water, and I was waist deep in the river, and
I was high and dry
the whole time. Stayed on the boat.
I was so dry when I was on the sculpture. I'm like, you know what? I want to stay dry, so I just stayed on the boat for a while he did all the hard work.
By the time we'd sat around and loaded in a truck and got it back to the start-finish line, everybody had already finished and was having dinner. But
That's right. While the think tank was getting pulled out of the water, the other machines were making their triumphant trek to the finish line. Don't tell them they didn't win, though.
I mean, I'm thrilled. My only hope was that we finished the race, which we didn't do, and I don't care. It was still the best day ever.
It was such a huge success. I can't even comprehend how well it came together for the first race. That I've been to so many things in Lowell where you hope for the best, expect the worst, and there may be people there to watch, but there were tons of people there.
Not just watching. As it turns out, some were inspired by what they saw. Jay's friend and fellow artist Steve Ansley offers his perspective.
Everything a man needs to know about winning can be learned from an iconic flying fish and a dozen people in light blue t-shirts on a sunny day in Lowell, Massachusetts. When I was young, I always believed that victory is reserved for the person who crosses the finish line first. I'm older now, and some things become more clear. I saw a tall, thin man in a top hat pedal a giant metal fish down a cobblestone street, The choice to be the person who takes the challenge is the true victory. I saw people in a giant inflatable hamster wheel rolling down a cobblestone street through a mud pit and on top of a river, full of joy and the wild desire to live in a world where happiness is the act of motion. I saw a tall, thin man in a top hat rely on his friends to push him through a mud pit. The choice to help the person who takes the challenge is true victory. I saw a 12-foot tall octopus making its way down a highway from a pit of mud to a clean flowing river, full of wonder and the sweet desire to live in a world where joy is the journey to a strange new place. I saw a tall, thin man in a top hat, through force of will and his 2 feet, paddle a metal fish up a river. The choice to continue when the challenge seems impossible is true victory. When I was young, I always believed that losing was crossing the finish line after anyone else had crossed. I'm older now, and the truth is more complicated and more clear. Everything a man needs to know about winning can be learned from a man sitting on the back of a metal fish, pushing onward with his friends down the streets of Lowell, into the Merrimack, and then home into the hearts of everyone that saw.